It's recording right now. Ooh. I'll just get the first part out of it.
Yeah, you just tell me
Right,
if you hear that buzzing and then we can turn it off.
Let's see. Yeah, it's kind of loud, huh?
Yeah, the remote is right there. The white one. We'll just turn it off, and if we start sweating, we'll be good. Now, just so you know, since you can see the clock, I do need to finish this particular interview by 5 minutes. My daughter has to leave, so I want to say goodbye to her. So we have about 40 minutes.
Okay.
We can record another one afterwards. I just want to be able to say goodbye to her.
Yeah. That'd be fine. There's no echo in yours, right?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Perfect. I was just making sure.
Why did that go off? Come on. Oh, that's better, yeah. I'll give that to you.
All right. Oh, yeah, now we can't hear it.
Yeah, that was really echoing in my ear.
Okay. Man, that is louder. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, welcome back to the show. This is the Mornings with Alex, and my guest today is going to be Laura. Go ahead and tell me about yourself and what you do.
I'm Laura Rothschild, and I'm a sexologist, sexual educator, and certified divorce coach.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot.
So, give me a breakdown of what your day-to-day looks like being a sexologist, because I'm sure a lot of people hear sexologist and like, whoa, I wonder if she just has sex all day.
I wish. No, that's called prostitution. I think we addressed that last time, but
we did.
No, I work with individuals and couples on various aspects of connecting with their sexuality, whether it be learning new techniques through education and helping them explore their bodies, get in touch with their bodies, learn how to communicate about pleasure and their desires, and identify maybe areas of improvement, or if they have trauma. I work with uncovering and healing trauma and also using outside resources to support them.
Okay.
And for couples, often, couples will come to me and say, hey, things, we love each other. Things are a little flat. We're curious. What can we do? And so I help them, explore the possibilities.
Oh, okay. Exploring possibilities. That's nice. I like that. So, how long have you been a sexologist?
My whole life.
Your whole life?
That's kind of how I say it, but
okay.
Yeah, I really used to admire Dr. Ruth, and I always thought it was so cool that, even as a kid, I had enough awareness to go, wow, that's a really cool job. But I guess officially, this has just been a recent thing in my life. I mean, I have a nursing background, and it wasn't until after my divorce, which was 4 years ago, that I was kind of put back, or should I say thrust, for lack of a better word, into the world of online dating and sex again after being in a committed relationship for 17 years, that I realized how unprepared and how challenging, and just I was lost, and that just sparked this curiosity in me that made me want to learn as much as I could about sex and about communication. And so I've been in school nonstop since then, and I think I'll continue the rest of my life. The topic of sex is very broad and complex, so I feel like I'll be a lifelong student.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. I mean, you sound like you love what you do, and from the conversations you and I have had on the side, I mean, it's very eye-opening, and you give me a whole different perspective on different subjects and things like that. So I appreciate it, and that's why I like having you here.
Thank you.
It's really good.
Well, I love the opportunity to talk about sex. So thanks for having me.
After 17 years, you're back in the dating pool.
Yeah. I was in a 20-year, but 17 years married, 2 kids. And we, it was, and I always say, God help those first few men who went on the original dates with me. But it's a new experience out there dating and relating. I mean, first of all, online dating didn't exist when I was in the dating world. But so that was the first thing to get used to. And communication. And I know you and I have talked a little bit about this, how it's the texting versus the in-person. And I know we're going to talk more about that even post, well, I guess we're sort of post-COVID. We're still somewhat in COVID, but just navigating that and how to have conversations with people. But I realized I was so not in touch with my desires and sexuality. And the person I was when I was dating in my 20s, it's not at the core of who I am, it's the same person, but my body has changed. Everything has changed, my perspective. So
yeah, you're a lot more open-minded, I'm sure, about things.
I've always been open-minded, but I'm more curious. And that's, kind of the cornerstone of what I tell people is the key to any adventure or relationship is curiosity. Curiosity, whether it be physical curiosity or emotional curiosity in that person that you are engaged in, or persons. The reality is there are multiple ways to be engaged in intimacy, and some people are very monogamous, and some people have multiple partners and have polyamorous relationships. So I work with individuals who have various choices, in options,
Wow, that's really cool. So tell me a little bit about, like, now that you're in the dating world, you've kind of adjusted to it and everything like that. And now that, like, COVID hit, how does that, like, change things?
Well, I actually think it's been fantastic. And that's been, I've been working with clients who are like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I think it's given individuals, we can talk about from an individual perspective and then for a couple's perspective, but I think what's happened is COVID has almost forced us to, in the dating world, to communicate. A lot of what we do is, whereas prior to COVID, you would maybe exchange some text, maybe a phone call, and then people would jump right into a date and seeing, if there's chemistry, and then you go into a relationship or, dating someone, and then you realize, wow, we don't have a lot in common because you didn't necessarily have the time or you didn't cultivate that connection. So COVID has definitely given us alternative ways, and almost, people are communicating more before meeting in person and using Zooms and FaceTimes. And I think that it's interesting to build connections with people from more of a heart forward or intellectual level first versus relying purely on the physical. So that's been different for sure. And I think it's also allowed people to see where some of their weak spots are. And in communication is one of the areas that I see people are challenged the most in. It's hard to say, this is who I am, this is what I want. And COVID has kind of made us more aware of what our I wouldn't say needs weaknesses, but the blind spots for sure.
Yeah. So, like, when people are communicating via text, are there certain things that may be off limit, and certain things that you may want to have a conversation in person? And how do you take the steps forward to have that conversation with someone, especially being on lockdown or having to wear a mask or not being able to meet in public or something like that?
Well, I have, I tell people, and this hasn't changed, whether it be COVID or pre-COVID or post-COVID, is texting really should be used strictly for, like, the fundamentals. Check-ins, hello, how are you, good night, I'm thinking of you, confirming dates, or just...
What about, like, nudes?
Yeah. Make sure they're full and very sharp. And with your face. I could go on and on about that. But I just think, the connection is built through vulnerability and context, and, you can't emote any type of emotion through a text. And there's all that space for someone to interpret or misinterpret. Yeah. And I think important conversations should be had either by the phone, hearing someone's voice, also given the opportunity for a full explanation or context, as well as for the ability for you to say, okay, can you tell me more about that? I didn't quite get that. Whereas text, people immediately jump to conclusions. We fill in the gaps, we tell the story, and things implode so much quicker. Yeah. And I think a lot of good potential relationships get completely botched because people will not just have a conversation. They rely on text, and then they make an assumption, and mistakes are made, and it's done. So I always tell clients and people, great, texting is a good intro, but then go to the phone. Say, hey, can we have a conversation? Hey, can we Zoom? Can we FaceTime? Because you can, seeing people's expressions. And
the technology is available to us now. And
use it and keep using it. That's
definitely.
my post-COVID thing is use this. I mean, use this opportunity. A lot of contact, when I mean contact, I mean really energetic contact, can happen through a screen. If you're engaged and you're willing. And it's how I do my practice primarily, and it will continue to be. I do some in person, but people are amazed at how much connection you can have with them when you are actually present and engaged in a video conference, whatever it may be. I don't want to be a commercial for Zoom, or I just happen to be using a lot of Zoom.
I think everyone's using Zoom right now. So
I know, which I had stock in Zoom.
But so what has been your experience right now with COVID happening, and like what have you experienced with all this for online dating or meeting people or partners and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, my perspective comes from an individual who is out there dating, who is not in a relationship, along with my clients who come to me for, not just sexuality coaching, but also I have people that come to me for, just like dating, what I call dating 101. Like, hey, how can I do this better? Look at my profile, look at my conversations. And what I'm seeing, I think is, it's, again, for me, I'm big about communication, and it's kind of it really is the cornerstone. So I think that, it really is an individual thing. Like I have some clients and friends who absolutely will not do a face-to-face with someone until they are 100% comfortable, or the government or someone has said, you can be out and about and move around the cabin. And then I have others, and I've engaged with, a person who I knew prior to COVID, because I felt safe and we were on the same page and we always had communication. Who have you had contact with? What, where have you been? And I think, people are doing a little bit of everything. There are some people that have not stopped seeing people and have had sex and face-to-face relations with people. And then there are others that have been strictly online. I mean, I have one individual that I've been speaking to for 3 months. And it's amazing how much we know about each other, but we've never met in person. We've FaceTime.
How does that feel to you? Like, so much about each other. You guys talk, communicate almost every day, I'm sure. And like, you've never met that person.
It's a new experience. But again, it just is really, it's reinforced for me how with intention and like, I feel like we're like really good friends no matter what. And whether we decide, which by maybe the next time we do our next recording, we will have met in person because that's our plan sometime over the next week. I always feel like at this point, what's really refreshing is we have incredible conversations, and whether we have that face-to-face chemistry and or not, this is a great friendship that I've, great. And this is how I also tell people when they approach dating, and this has nothing to do with COVID, is that look at it as play. Look at it as an adventure. Look at it as like, people say to me, oh, this, I want more than ever. I want to meet my person. But yet they'll be like, oh, this is so tiresome. Oh my God, it's tedious. Oh, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is supposedly the most important thing to you, to meet your person. And yet you're willing to put so little effort when it's that important. So I think that's really going forward, whether it doesn't matter whether like, again, this is not a COVID thing, but really ask yourself, how important is it for you to find your person? Because it's amazing how much time we'll spend on things that really don't give us anything, but yet we're not as willing to put the time and the energy to get to know someone or even try to get to know people. That's what this is. Online dating is just another tool. So use all your video chats and your phone, talk to people, and see it as play.
What do you think is the biggest fear for just people in general in dating when they're starting to get to know people? what do you feel is the biggest fear when they start to kind of feel a connection and they're just like, whoa?
Oh, I think everybody's fear is getting hurt.
Yeah.
And rejected. I
thing.
don't, even the most confident, I mean, nobody wants to get hurt.
No.
And I think we forget that, that we're all out there, just everybody wants to, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but I think at the core of our human nature, we all just want to be loved and be a part of something. So I hear a lot of women say, oh gosh, guys they have too many choices and they don't want love and they don't have to do this and that. And I say, no, rewrite that story. Men are just as nervous about, they want to be accepted. They don't, they have in some ways more pressure because they have to, when's the right time? When's the this? I say, throw out the rules and just
make your own rules.
Make your own rules. And that's a big part of what I work with people is kind of rewiring those stories of, and men as well as women, like we all need to just, I think trying to break down that wall and just take risks. Getting hurt takes risk. But the reward can be incredible. And you might have to date a few frogs. Yeah, as I don't say, because this is goes well for men as women. It's just like you may have to go through 100, 200 people to find that one person. But wow, to find that one person, that's what the goal is, right? Or multiple. If you don't want to be just that one person, maybe you want to have 3 people. Who knows? Again, this is a new world. Yeah. So I just think it's really seeing it from a different perspective.
Okay, and so let me ask you this. Let's say, for instance, someone's out there, now that you mentioned, you can have 3 people or 4 people or however many people you want. Let's just say, for instance, you're dating 4 people at once. Now, what is the courtesy to tell somebody that, hey, I'm seeing other people and you too? Is there a courtesy behind it? Is there a rule that you have to put out there? Or do you just manage and juggle these 4 guys all at once and hopefully they don't find out about each other?
Well,
or women.
I never ever. I think honesty is, always the way to go, and you can't. So I never make an assumption, and I tell people, don't ever make an assumption about what someone else wants. And if you're not communicating to someone, and I think these are conversations that people have. I mean, I have them when I first talk to someone. I'll say, listen, and this is, I'll just use me as an example. I would love to find that one person that just makes me want to stop dating and just say, hey, yeah, you're my person. Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm okay with dating. Multiple people are still looking for that person. Hey, if that's you, great. But I need you to know I am not just going to run into a committed relationship. It's just, I think it's just really getting in touch with what you want. Yeah. What you want and being open. And there have been people in my life that have said, I don't want to be one of a few or 2 or 1 or 3 or 4. It doesn't matter. Like they're like, I want to be the one and I'm not going to continue this engagement if that's the case. And I make an assessment at that moment. So I think it's important, again, you can say what you want in a very, just in a very considerate way. Yeah. It's like, listen, I want you to know this is where I'm at this point. And if you're wanting to engage with me and go forward, then great. I think it's really important. It gets a little sticky for people I know when it comes to sex. And I think having these uncomfortable questions or conversations, up front, what people think are uncomfortable, saves everybody. What are your opinions about sex? How do you see sex? I mean, these are,
a lot of people see sex dirty.
They see it as dirty. They're shame. Yeah. I see men who are scared as well, just as women. Like for women, we have to deal with a lot of societal beliefs that might have been handed down to us from generations or even throughout our childhood, our religion. There's so many things that happens to men too. But, for some women, they're like, oh, if I have sex on the first date, he'll think I'm easy. He'll this. They bring their 20-year-old self into their 30, 40, 50-year-old self, 55-year-old self, and, are worrying about things that may not be as important at this point in their lives. When I was dating in my 20s, I had a different man on my radar. Yeah. I was thinking, children and my mate and my provider, like all different things, than I am now at 51. So I do believe, again, it comes down to getting clear. What do you want? And then saying and having those conversations. Well, how do you feel about sex? Like because I've learned, I can't say I do this for a living, but I've had conversations or not been as clear early on and been like, don't make assumptions that only women think that if they have sex with someone, then that means they're in a committed relationship. Yeah. I've had that experience with men. And I've been like, oh, wow, I'm really sorry. I didn't communicate with you that if this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. Don't make that assumption that we're in a committed relationship. I'm happy to communicate with you that I am seeing or I am having sex with other people. Again, it's communication.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know it's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people, it's hard for them to communicate. I think when I was younger, I didn't communicate at all. I dated a lot of people at once, and eventually it would somehow blow up in my face.
I see that a lot still.
Eventually I just grew up and, started being a little bit more mature-ish. And
I will grow up someday.
One day I'll be a real man.
Oh, you're well there.
As you just navigate through that life of just dating and being in relationships and being in a marriage and, raising a family and things like that. And I'm sure, there's some days where people get lonely and, I wish I had somebody, but they're not willing to take that foot forward to be vulnerable or share or open up. Or what is it that you said? There was a word you told me where they just not give in.
People get complacent.
Yes.
And they also settle.
Yes.
And it comes back to fear. It really is the heart of a lot of relationship challenges. It's one of the reasons too why people won't communicate if they want to date multiple people, because they're like, well, this person's great, and I'm afraid that if I share what I really want, they're going to bolt. Or it comes down even sexual desires. I see that with couples. I think it's fair that we really should talk a little bit more about couples too, because there's especially a fear.
Locked up together right now.
People are locked up together, so there's a lot of interesting conflict and awareness that's happening for couples. But even you find a person who you're like, wow, this is maybe this is my for now, but maybe it's my forever person, and then we realize that we haven't cultivated the communication that we want and our desires. Like maybe we haven't shared with them that, oh wow, I'm curious. I'm kind of curious about some of these things that you might consider kinky or that this, and now I'm afraid to tell you because I'm worried that you're going to think I'm weird. And so a lot of what I do is work with couples on, it's that fear again, like, oh my gosh, they love me now, but what if I start sharing my desires? Will they still love me or will they reject me? So what ends up happening is people clam up, they shove their desires down, it causes conflict, there's a disconnect, and it's just this cycle of misunderstanding and complacency. And then you have people who then they just end up integrating into each other to a point where there's no polarity and there's no sense of curiosity. And that's when relationships fizzle. Yeah. And, and then people come to me and go, God, we love each other, but we have no, zhuzh.
Yeah, there's no oomph
There's no oomph. And
spark
And so we kind of unravel, let's see where the breakdown was.
Yeah.
So I think when you're talking about, couples, we go back on the couples, and COVID is that people are now, there's no space. Maybe when you have a couple that they work apart during the day, or one travels for a few days for work and then comes home, and that's helped to keep some of that, what I call polarity in space, which helps fuel desire.
Yeah.
So it's one of the first areas that I look in with a couple is I'm like, okay, let's talk about your schedules. Like where are, do you have separate friends? What do you do together? Do you have hobbies? And the first thing is trying to figure out ways to put a little space between them and, and playing with this. I think you and I, we've talked about this because this is our second attempt. We talked about this in ways that if couples are still homebound together, I think you asked me, how do you how do you, with kids there and homeschooling and everybody up in each other. How do you
still keep that little passion or that little spike or,
yeah,
make it fun or something? Because you have kids running around. Everyone's homeschooled right now. You can't take the dog to the groomer. You can't travel.
No, there's nothing. Everyone's right up there in all your stuff.
Yeah.
And this is where texting does come in handy.
Okay.
And so we can talk about that. This is where I would say I could backpedal a little bit and say, playing games like texting games with each other, trying to put some space where you send each other little sexy texts, or try to, role play where one day one of you is kind of what I call the more dominant or the seductor, and the other one can be the seduced. Yeah. And so, the one day you can say, well, later on I'm going to, and then leave it blank, or play, what I call the oral sex game, the AURAL, oral as in ears, auditory, not mouth. That's auditory. Another game for another episode. But, where you now's the time to play with your partner. And so bringing in games and exploration that are a little bit you have to get out of your rut. And that's a big area that I think, I've also talked to couples about, okay, what are we going to do to help? And I'm not talking about now all of a sudden bringing in complicated, things and games, but like simple things that you can do and asking. Now's the time, we're spending a lot of time together. What is something that you have always been curious about around sex, but have maybe been afraid to talk to me about? Like now's the time to engage in those conversations. Yeah. And maybe even send little sexy text notes or ask that question, and then each of you have to answer it and send it back. So the key, I think, is just trying to say, where can we put play in between our relationship and space, So space in a time when there's not a lot of space. Yeah. So.
Interesting. I think that's my biggest thing is for couples right now is like they're so confined, like to even, I guess, have sex at home with the kids there and everything like that. I don't know if couples really worry about their kids being there or not, or how young they are or how old they are. Like, what are ways that they could make it interesting for themselves sexually if they're already exploring this and they're, sending these little messages and stuff, and eventually it's going to get a little hot and heavy. Like,
and that's the best thing. You want that hot and heavy.
You want that hot and heavy, but when you get to that point, there's kids screaming, you're trying to make dinner, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that.
Oh, dear Alex. So I get excited about the hot and heavy. Because to me, like, it's not always about the orgasm. And we're going to talk more about different things that, sex, it's everybody has a different idea of what is sex, right? And so for some individuals, it's that anticipation and the space and that hot and heavy that is the huge turn on. But then, of course, I think you're asking, well, what if you want the shebang? How do you navigate that when there's kids and dogs and people and parents?
Don't get me wrong, I love the hot and heavy. It's good. It's great. I like the lead up to it.
Yeah.
But then when the lead up gets there, you're just like, all right.
Well, that's where it's fun for you to get creative. In the car, in the garage, in the closet.
Oh, in the closet,
lock in the, or it could just be like passing your lover or your spouse or your partner and just giving them a little tickle. In the pantry or, I think it's just being playful. Yeah. Because, couples get in a rut that the only way to have sexual satisfaction is intercourse. And then what happens is that's the only way that they tend to, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, we get naked, we get in bed, we go through the act, and it's a rut. So COVID is kind of the opportunity to break the rut and see other ways how you can turn each other on. Other ways you can play. Again, play is like, it's a huge word in my vernacular for integrating sexuality and up-leveling your sexuality, whether you're single or especially for a couple. Yeah. I mean, it's really helping them say, how can you play a little bit more? Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing more exciting than being so turned on that all you want to do is find the next closest place and take the risk, but the kid's outside. I mean, for some people, that is a form
Block the door or something.
So kinky is anything taboo.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what we all think of as BDSM. So that's something that for couples, I'm like, all right, let's talk about psychological kink, like how you can play with the mind and the space and the sensation and the anticipation. What does that look like? What can that be? So those are all little things that I suggest couples, try to, again, a relationship is, we put so much effort on other things in our lives. It's like, I think, helping people pivot to saying, okay, where can I put some of that effort into us or into me? It's interesting. That's a hard place for people to go.
Yeah. I bet.
We get very busy and distracted. And then by the end of the day, we're too exhausted. And we just look at our lover and our partner. And we're just like, I'm too tired.
Let's go to bed.
Let's go to bed. Yeah. So bring it into your day a little bit more.
So there was this thing I read online like a few days ago. I was just kind of doing some research, and there's something called 30 days of sex, where you have 30 days of sex with your partner every single day for 30 days, no matter what, whether you're tired or whether you're getting out of work or whatever it is, you just have 30 days of sex with your partner. And the reason is that it's supposed to drive closeness with each other and a little bit more intimacy to each other. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, big proponent. However, there's a caveat to that. First of all, that is one of the pieces of advice that I will give couples who come and say, gosh, we've lost our sex drive. Or one of the partners will say, and in individuals, this applies to individuals, I've lost my libido. We look at a ton of other things, like biochemical, emotional, energetic, and physical. So let's just put those aside. In this case, let's just assume that everyone's healthy and running on all cylinders. So the thing is that the act of like orgasms and even intimacy, there is a chemical response in our bodies. I'm going to keep it very, grammar school science here. So one of the ways to increase your libido, as long as you don't have any other medical things to look at, you're overall a healthy individual and your hormone levels are balanced, and you don't have scar tissue or physical ailments, is to have more sex and get those sex hormones going. And not even just the sex hormones, but it's like oxytocin and dopamine, those feel-good hormones that people get
in a better mood,
that happen in addicts. Like these are all the things that make us feel good happen during sex. That's why sex feels good. So the more you do that, the more you have sex, so these 30-day sex challenges I love, then those hormones are still flowing. And believe it or not, it does. It works. It increases libido. The caveat is, I think the idea for people, and I think this is where, the clarity, there has to be a little bit of adjustment, is sex doesn't have to mean intercourse. Like I will tell people, hey, I love the 30-day challenge, but don't make it about having intercourse, because everybody experiences pleasure and desire and even orgasms from different ways and different touch. And what I would say is make it 30 days of where you're going to, no matter what, connect physically, connect emotionally. Like that could be even sitting in a tantric style position, staring in each other's eyes. It's that 30 days of trying to, really get to connect with your partner. And it could be oral sex. It could be intercourse. It could be anal sex. It could, can I say anal here? It could be anal sex. I'm just holding back, right? It could be eye gazing. It could be energetic heart play. It could be just fingers and tongues and all that kind of stuff. So that to me, I think is and it's also, it's more realistic for people.
Yeah, that sounds way better than just intercourse all day.
Just intercourse.
Like, hey, let's have intercourse and call it a day.
I mean, hey, intercourse is like, hey, I'm not knocking intercourse.
No, I'm not.
But not everybody enjoys intercourse for multiple reasons, or that's not how they get off, for lack of using just simple terms. So I think first is agreeing to engage in this 30-day practice of intimacy and making an effort to have variety, and then what happens is then you learn, you get surprised. you can in your mind or even articulate, oh, well, I do like this kind of touch and I like it when you do this. But now over this 30 days, if you're doing all kinds of exercise and different things, you might discover that, oh, I didn't know that really made me turned on when you do that to me. And so it's an exploration. And I think people learn, there's a lot that I learn. It's fun to watch people, realize that something, even eye gazing or playing with energy, because we are energetic beings. Like I have colleagues and clients that can have an orgasmic experience without ever having intercourse. Wow. So there are so many other ways.
Sounds intense.
To experience intimacy and orgasms, and that most of us don't realize because it's never taught or talked about.
I like that.
Yeah, so
Sounds
30
good.
days
I like that 30 day of intimacy.
Intimacy and that curiosity and exploration.
Sounds good.
I think we need to do that challenge.
We should totally try that. Let's try that challenge.
I think we should.
Put it out
we
there.
might have to put that together.
Let's build something out there. Do it. I think I'll help you with it. Let's do it. The other thing is, I know we're going to talk about the erotic blueprint. That's one thing that I'm really interested in. I know we're going to save it for the next show. But give me just a quick little breakdown of what that is and what it does for couples or even just individuals.
Yeah, so the erotic blueprints are what I call, it's a roadmap to pleasure. So for some listeners, they might be aware of Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages. I usually like to bridge that, connect those dots because the 5 erotic blueprints are ultimately somewhat of like archetypes that most of us fall into. Either everyone has potentially the breadth of all 5 of them, of these particular archetypes or blueprints, but some of us can maybe be stuck or be only in 1 or 2 of them, or one of them our whole lives. So it's just it's a communication tool. It's a self-awareness tool just to understand pleasure and desire and what we love and like as individuals, sexually and emotionally. So there's 5 of them. There's the energetic, the sexual, the sensual, the kinky, and there's kinky is sensational, physical, or emotional, psychological. And then there's the shapeshifter. And the shapeshifter can easily move between all of them. And each one has what we call their superpowers and their shadow sides. So as individuals, knowing these and understanding what your blueprint is, and then how to connect and recognize or even know what your partner's blueprint is it's like eye-opening for people. Yeah. And I think, I've shared with you that had I understood or had a tool like this in my marriage, I would have understood where some of the sexual disconnect happened, whereas my ex was more of a sexual and I was more of an energetic sensual. So for him, he was like, well, sexuals, they tend to be very genital focused and it's about the end game and the orgasm. Yeah. It was more important for him to either have an orgasm or make sure I had one. Whereas an energetic and a sensual is more, we really relish the touch, that space, that anticipation, some of that connection. That's what we really long for. So to a sexual understanding, they want, it's like, well, what's the problem? Let's just have sex. And then the sensual may be like, but it's not quite, the room isn't neat enough, and the candles don't smell good, and oh my God, I didn't shave exactly how I want to, so so, and the sexual could get sex, come on, what's the matter with you? And so it's, now the sexual has their shadow sides too. So it's, once you understand that, you can go, oh, that's your sensual coming out. I get it. Time out. Let me pick up the laundry off the floor for you and go from there. Yeah. So it's a great tool to have, and it can bring some lightness into relationships. So we are going to talk more about them next episode, because there's a lot to say about the blueprints.
Yes, the next episode we will. And then again, I thank you very much for always sitting down and talking with me. I always love talking with you about this stuff.
Thank you.
let them know about your website. Let them know where they can contact you, where they can get in touch with you, and maybe book an appointment with you and just kind of go over a little short survey with you or whatnot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do what I call the discovery call. So, love to get to talk to people and see if we're a good fit, because this is very, sex is fun and I try to bring the fun into it, but it's also deep, powerful work that it has to be a two-way fit, whether it be a couple or an individual. But you can find me on my website, which I'll have you put in the show notes, but it's a life reimagined.rocks. My name's Laura Rothschild, and you can book appointments directly there. You can call me at 888-705-2009. You can also find me on social media.
I'll put all your stuff in there.
Coming
I'll
back.
Put you on, I'll put all the social media links, all the website links, all your numbers, everything.
I'm not the best at social media, but I love to talk about sex. So
there you go. We'll put it out there, and we'll put more information so they can contact you. But other than that, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and we're going to do this again. Again, guys, we're going to try to do weekly segments with this, and maybe answer some of your questions if you guys have any, answer any type of different opinions that you guys might have. You can put them in the comments below. You can contact me directly, email me as well at themorningswood at icloud.com. And other than that, guys, thank you again for watching this podcast with us, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you.
thanks.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, perfect timing.
I know.
So I can go say goodbye to my girl. Now, I can record another one if you want. It's up to you, if you have the time.
I think that's good. I want to do some more.